Welcome back to Creating Dementia Solutions. I'm Richard Pyatt. This show from Access Vision in downtown Battle Creek is a Miles for Memories program, and we invite you to follow us. Make sure you follow Miles for Memories on Facebook. You'll be alerted when these episodes come available. This year, we've been focused on talking to folks who are prominent volunteers for Miles for Memories, some of whom you've heard from before in this series, but we're talking to them this time about why they're so committed to the mission of Miles for Memories. And with that, where does the caregiving component come into play? Today, we're talking with Representative Steve Frisbee, our Battle Creek representative in the Michigan House, who, of course, many of you may know, has spent a career as a caregiver, in essence, being a first responder, and has a particular connection to this mission. Welcome back, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming.
You bet. And you say prominent, but I think as every volunteer at Miles for Memories is prominent, and it's part of our legacy is that it doesn't matter who you are. If you want to help, you're more than welcome to come. Yeah. We'll take your input. We'll take your hard work. We'll take your advice.
Right.
So it's just a great group of people.
That's true. I can attest to that after many years in this seat and others. Talk about your career history just for a second, in case there's one or two people who don't know.
Yep. So I started off as an EMT in Colon, 1984, fresh off a high school graduation, and worked on a farm, my uncle's farm, for a little bit, but then decided I was going to become a paramedic, and went to school in Grand Rapids, got that paramedic license. Secured it in the end of '83, the beginning of '84, and came to work in Battle Creek as a brand new paramedic at then called Serial City EMS, which eventually became Life Care Ambulance. And there I stayed 41 years. So it was a career.
That's right. And not many folks can say they spent 41 years with the same group.
It's a different atmosphere. We grew up with that, hearing our elders say, I worked for 40, 50 years at a place, and we even probably thought, how did you do that? But I found myself in a role that, new paramedic into supervision, administration, and ended as the vice president, but still a paramedic and running calls, helping people. So I didn't stay because it was going to be hard to leave. I stayed because I really enjoyed what I did, and helping people and leading people eventually, and just felt it was a natural fit for me. It was good to me. I was good to it. I got out of it what I gave to it, which was a lot, and both ways. So it was a very satisfying, rewarding career.
Was it a calling for you? What was it about it that spoke to you? Because some people might say, boy, that's a little too much adrenaline for me, or whatever, fill in the word.
Well, I can see how they would think that, but my father was the fire chief in Colon.
I see.
Before his senior year in high school, him and his best friend, Dick Bauer, they're both gone now, but before their senior year in high school, the Colon Rescue Squad, as part of the fire department, was being formed, and they both expressed an interest in being part of it. So in the summer and early fall before their senior year, they actually got trained in advanced first aid, which was the highest level of training you could have.
Sure.
And as high school seniors, were now on the rescue squad and fire department. So that was some of my motivation, because I loved what my dad did. It was times where you had to give up family things because duty called as a volunteer, and drop everything and run. But that was my stimulation to say, look what he's doing. He's having a ball, number one, and he's helping people, number two. And you get to do those two things together. What else could you want? So I joined the fire department, the rescue squad, and then I thought, how can I use this as a launch pad in a career? I'm going to become a paramedic. Johnny and Roy, Emergency 51 was really prevalent when I was a young teenager, I guess.
Yep.
And it just became a focus of, here's what I want to do, and then the path came clear, and I jumped on and just never looked back.
And then when you got through education and got to work, was it everything you imagined?
Yes and no, right? It wasn't Johnny and Roy, that's for sure.
Right.
Johnny and Roy never went on those really boring calls where you wondered, what in the heck am I doing here? They were always full of action, but that's about 5% or less of the time, and but you learned to put those compassion skills that you were developing into work, and everybody that called you felt they needed you. And you used your skill and compassion to make sure that you made their day better. We always dealt with people that were having their worst moment,
Yes.
potentially of their life. And if you could walk in and be calm and compassionate and understanding and connect with them, often that just solved a lot of the problem right there. They felt like, okay, help is here, you know. And when you could walk in the room with that kind of a presence to say, I'm here to help, and watch people calm. Very, very, telling moment in a career of I'm making a difference.
I'm presuming it didn't take long before you encountered a situation that involved someone with memory loss.
Oh,
or
almost
confusion.
instantly.
Almost instantly.
Yeah, memory care units weren't really a thing then, right? They were either in a nursing home, a skilled nursing facility, or they were at home. And, right away you get exposed to both of folks that were really ill at home or folks that were really ill within a skilled nursing facility. But there really weren't that many around. They started to be developed in the late 80s or through the 90s and became more prevalent, where you were dealing with a whole host of folks together. But they would be scattered throughout a nursing home or scattered throughout the community. So we dealt with them really, and it was very quickly in that career.
Talk about how you might have approached that situation then as opposed to more recently. And that's changed a lot.
Yeah, the first few times you deal with them, you're trying to communicate. You probably don't know that communication's not hitting home with them.
Yeah.
About that same time, my first grandparent developed dementia. And I'll never forget walking in. He was in what was called Arrowwood at the time, out on Bedford Road. And he had dementia pretty bad. And I walked in and he immediately said, "Steve, it's so great to see you." And we had a 30-second conversation. And in the next 30 seconds, he was pointing to the deer down in the stream at the end of the cornfield. And just like that, I went from Grandpa's here to Grandpa's gone.
Yeah.
And it took that time to learn that you can't let that frustrate you. You just have to be consistent. You just have to be persevere in that and understand that they probably want to communicate with you. They just can't, right? And sometimes they understand you and sometimes they don't. You have to guide them carefully, gently. So that helped me because it helped me in my career because it helped me understand that I knew my grandpa wanted to communicate with me, Grandpa Hegelgans, and I knew that he couldn't. So it helped me in that career sense that nobody's faking this, right? Sometimes you thought, are they just acting crazy? Are they having a moment? Are they having a medical condition causing this? No, there's an affliction, and you learned more about it as you went.
So it's worth noting that when we sat down here, I gave you an idea of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about a personal family connection at all.
Right.
But it came up.
Right.
And it occurs to me that everyone so far this year who sat there has had some kind of a personal connection.
Yeah.
And here it came up without even really...
3 out of 4 of my grandparents all were afflicted with some form of dementia. The 4th one did not. She died a little bit younger of cancer. But 3 out of 4, and 3 of them were in pretty bad shape memory-wise at the end. So you could just feel them slipping away.
I'm imagining that having known your grandfather, it might have been a little quicker to assess that he's with you in your
Yeah.
thought, and maybe he's not.
Yeah.
As opposed to someone whom you might encounter on a call.
Right.
You've got to sort through that because you don't know these folks.
Right. And after you get that training and that experience of those first several patients, you start to understand what's impacting that communication, right? It's not that they don't want to communicate with you, they just can't right at the moment, or they can't respond appropriately. So, yeah, it gave me that viewpoint, and that perspective in life with my grandparents. That just be patient. You can work through this. You can figure out how you can communicate with them. It may be very rudimentary of does this hurt or not? Does that hurt? And they didn't poke and they say yes. Okay, not reliable. How do I figure this out? And a little more visual inspection, those kind of things to figure out where they hurt. Watch them try to move an arm or a leg and watch that grimace, because you just learn those cues. Grimace is a great one. Fluttering of the eyes, that's a hurt sign too. So or getting quiet or holding their breath. You'll learn those visual and audio cues that helps you identify what's going on with your patient, what's going on with your family member.
And at an early stage in your career, that person having recognized on your part there might be a memory issue here would probably have gone to the ER.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, often. Where we transported most of our patients anyway. Very rarely were we taking them from their home, to a physician's office. If they were at a nursing home, sometimes we took them to another, a physician's office. But it became a difficult story to tell to the ER of what's wrong. So you had to make sure that the family became the best source. Like, what's different today with your father or mother or your aunt or uncle versus what was different yesterday? What physically is different? What emotionally is different? Why did you call us? What made you think I need to call an ambulance to help me intervene with my loved one?
And sometimes the answer to that might have been they're lost or they've wandered, and somehow an ambulance gets called.
They've gotten really, really confused. They're not having periods of lucidness. They don't even know where they are. They're becoming combative. We saw that a lot, where they're anger, combative, trying to flee because they think you've become the enemy. Yeah. Right? I need to get out of here. So, and that's really sad to watch from a family standpoint, where they see that, and all of a sudden that connection that they had, because they were with them all the time, starts to dwindle. And that's when caregiving becomes a really tough thing to do, because you're there because you love them. You felt it back before, and now maybe you don't feel it. Yeah.
So, somewhat recently, within a few years, the Miles for Memories technology came into play, and this changed the game, I presume, from where you sit.
It did. My first Sherry was after me to get involved with Miles for Memories. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. Like, I don't have time. The typical response, I don't have time. She said, well, we're having an event at Burnham Brook. Come down and watch. I want you to see this. And I'll never forget it, because having been involved in healthcare all my life, you always think of medical devices, medication, intervention kind of stuff. And this was nothing more than a painter's pad of paper, a vase of flowers, and everybody had paint and brushes. And the whole goal that night was to bring a patient, a dementia patient, who was pretty much non-communicative, had lost a lot of their ability to communicate with family, a caregiver from wherever they were staying, and a family member. And the more this went on, the more I was just like, oh my goodness. It's crazy, because all they were doing was having everybody, all three of those and there was probably 10 or 12 patients around the room, paint a vase of flowers. And there was somebody that was walking him through. They drew the outline of the vase, they drew the outline of the flowers, and the longer they went, they started having communication with their family member.
Wow.
Whew. Boom.
Yes.
I was, oh my God, what is going on here? How did this work? And it was just an amazing moment in healthcare for me because, like I said, I was waiting for that magic shot or medication to come out. No, all we needed was something to trigger the other side of their brain, and all of a sudden they're communicating with their loved one. Tears everywhere,
Yes.
including me.
Yes.
And as they finished up and they tried to conclude some conversations before they lost them,
Yeah.
and as they withdrew from the activity of painting, then they faded back into their shell. And it was just, wow.
Yeah.
How could I say no to Sherry anymore, right? It's like, you little stinker, you hook, line, and sinkered me into this. And I've been involved ever since. And honestly, since having been elected as a state rep, my involvement has been less and less because the meetings are here and the people are here and the effort is here. Often I'm in Lansing. So, but there's my support and my commitment to their mission grows continually.
So the approach medically in first responder protocol was affected by this. This wasn't just an opportunity for you to learn, but you took this back, I presume, and started talking about it with your peers.
Yeah, we brought some folks in to Life Care and talked about dementia care, and we don't have time to paint vases of flowers in the back of an ambulance, nor would it be effective, but there are things you can do, like, if they have access to music that they like, the music period that they love. We've seen that with the headsets where we put, somebody that's not been communicative and maybe not even moving a lot, and you put the music on that they love, and all of a sudden they're tapping their fingers and their toes are moving and they're smiling and they're looking at you like, what are we doing?
They might be singing the lyrics.
They probably are. And sometimes you can see them kind of moving their lips to it. So there's multiple ways to engage them. It doesn't work well as a healthcare provider to use that because the headset's on, they're not going to hear you. Painting a vase, they're not going to pay attention to you. But it gives you some ideas about where that patient really was, right? And how can I connect? And it's very direct. It's persistent, but very patient. And, figuring out what, like I said, what makes them, where does it hurt and how? So how can I best take care of my patient? So I've learned a lot over the years about how you interact with a dementia patient. And sometimes it's really effective, and other times you go, nothing worked. Right? Sometimes they're just so lost in dementia that they don't know who they are, where they are, or why. And they don't even know what's wrong with them. Somebody else figured it out.
Yeah. So you can call to mind then, I presume, occasions upon which someone might have wandered.
Oh, yeah.
And you or one of your colleagues was called.
Yep.
They had a bracelet or some other device.
Yep.
What happened?
So what happened before we did some program stuff around here was they would end up in an ambulance. The police would find them eventually, hopefully. Not always. We had some sad cases. But we had a person that wandered all the way to Iowa in a period of lucidness, grabbed some keys, knew how to drive, and got themselves to Iowa where they ran out of gas alongside the highway, and the state trooper found them. And, so where they ended up in an ER. But that would happen. People would wander in the Calhoun area. Often the police officers or volunteers, maybe a neighbor would, somebody real concerned about this person looks lost and confused. I'm going to intervene, thankfully. contact 911. Police show up. It's like, okay, we don't know where this gentleman or this lady lives. We're going to send them to the ER because they're acting different.
Mm-hmm.
They're not acting normal. And these people would end up in the back of an ambulance going to ER. So they now have an ambulance bill, an emergency room bill, and all of the testing bills that were associated
Sure.
to find out there was nothing wrong with them. If they knew the history of the patient, they'd have said, oh, he's not having a stroke. He's this way normally. So what we did was work with the Sheriff's Department, the police departments, 911, the prosecutor, and put in a help home program. And that was really a game changer for some folks. And it's all voluntary, but you can fill out a form with as much information as you want about who Uncle Joe is and the medications, if you want them to know that, his medical history, which I would advise you to do. You don't have to give away and you shouldn't give away their banking information, Social Security, not that stuff, but stuff that can help them, whoever's encountering them, to help care for them. And they get entered in a database at 911, including a picture. And if Uncle Joe comes up missing, you can dial 911, say, hey, Uncle Joe's missing. And if he's in the database, they can pull it up. They can send that picture to every police officer that's on duty in Calhoun County.
Wow.
And you can do things, and I would recommend this. List former addresses.
Might go there.
They would, just by habit, right? I don't know how many times after I sold a house I've ended up in my old driveway because I'm talking on the, hands-free on the phone, thank goodness. But you're not thinking, and you're just going home, right? After a while, you get used to going to your regular home. But I don't have dementia, but it was the creature of habit.
Yeah.
But then we can reunite people without an ambulance, without an emergency room, without a bunch of testing that wasn't needed, and get them back to where they need to be, and that's at home in their safe environment. And then we added to it these tracking devices that you can add to the tracking, so that if Uncle Joe comes missing, you could have added this little device to their clothing. You activate it off your phone, and you know right where they're at, and you can go get them, right? And so there's just all kinds of things we've done with Miles for Memories that help the patient, help the caregiver, help the community, so that this is just a better place for a patient with dementia to be able to live.
And to be clear, an ambulance may not be called now in this landscape because the picture's out there, the information's out there, the bracelet can be scanned, there's the information.
Yeah.
No ambulance needed.
No ambulance needed.
Possibly.
Yeah, and no hospital needed.
Yeah.
What they needed was a hot meal at home, right? So it's cool stuff to watch that develop as a result of Miles for Memories. All volunteers.
Something else you said that I noted was the process of trying to understand what someone might be going through once you've arrived at a call. That could take a little bit. When you said stroke, is this person having a stroke?
Right.
There's a lot of there's a lot on that list that you've got to go through.
Yeah, and are they having a diabetic issue, right? Their blood sugar's low, their blood sugar's high. Are they having a stroke? A litany of things that you're trying to rule out as a care provider, because that's what you do when you don't know what's going on. You just start ruling the worst things out.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Not stroke. Not blood sugar's fine. What do I suspect? Well, I don't know, but I now kind of suspect that this is a dementia patient, and if they're alone, for whatever reason, you're going to transport them, but you're not going to know what's wrong with them because they can't. They just don't let you know.
Yeah.
And they're confused, and they're scared. So, yep.
Yeah. Now that you've been in Lansing a little while, when you take this experience to Lansing and look around at what influence lawmakers have, is there something Lansing could do to help this process?
Yeah, and it's a difficult one to wade through. Everybody thinks they have the highest priority in Lansing.
Yeah.
Just ask them. So the thing I learned long ago is don't rely on government to solve everything, right? And Miles for Memories is an affirmation of don't wait, just keep moving. And if the law needs to change, then you go get some legal changes. Things like respite care, that's an important thing for a family member who's alone taking care of a dementia patient. They can get to the point of doing some really, or even considering doing some really not smart things as to get out of this situation. So we need to support things like respite care and those kind of efforts that would Medicaid pay for it. Can you use nursing homes? And we worked on those things to be able to accept them, like a Calhoun County medical care facility, and they agreed to do it without a law change and on a very short-term basis, but to give that care provider that respite time that they need to get their head straight or find another solution or find another location. Because sometimes the needs of that dementia patient just now outweighs the ability of the caregiver to provide.
Yeah, there's a point where that comes.
Yeah, and I've had conversations, I've lost track of how many conversations with people that I knew and people that I greatly respected. One of the first ones I ever had was with a board member at Life Care, and kept going on calls to his house that dealt with his wife. And the board member just, after a few months, he looked wrung out. Like he looked like he was just to the point where it was affecting him negatively and his health and his ability to care for her. So we transported her to the hospital, and I said, "Come here, I need to talk to you." It's the toughest conversation.
It is tough, isn't it?
It is, but when you can offer a perspective from many different perspectives that kind of mold together to say, here's what I see. And what I see is you driving yourself into the ground. And what you're attempting to do is provide her with a stable, everyday, repeatable situation.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's what dementia patients need. But if you continue down this path, she's not going to have it. You're going to end up hospitalized or worse, drive yourself into the ground, end up dead as a result of a health issue if you don't get some help. And that help could be you now need to move your wife or your spouse into a different situation because you just can't do this.
And that's sometimes hard for folks to want to pay attention to, but I mean to realize, because they feel responsible. They feel till death do us part. This is the commitment.
Better or worse, death do us part.
Yes.
But you have to have the ability to have that conversation till death do us part, for better, for worse. You can make it better.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean you suffer. It means you work to do it better. And what your spouse needs right now is somebody that's going to give her safety, somebody that can keep an eye on her 24/7, or your spouse 24/7, somebody that knows all the signs and symptoms of a problem of a dementia patient. And what you need is the ability to have three meals a day and 8 hours of sleep uninterrupted, because you're worried that now your loved one has become a night owl.
Yes.
And you're trying to accomplish things during the day, keeping track of your spouse at night. That's just a recipe for disaster. And if your goal is to give your spouse the best opportunities in a dementia situation, that may include you letting go just a little bit to put them somewhere where they're going to be safe. And by golly, that's a tough conversation.
Right. Well, we asked Steve to come and offer this perspective from that of an emergency responder, and we got it.
Yep.
We got a lot out of this, I think, from many perspectives, including the one we didn't plan for, which was your own personal connection.
All of these things, when you put them all together, they've just gave me affirmation that being involved with Miles for Memories was a great decision. And I thank Sherry every time this conversation. Thanks for getting me involved. Otherwise, I'd just be on the outside going, well, I don't know what they do. They do something with dementia. Well, it affected me, like I said, with, at the very end, my father was demonstrating some levels of early dementia in his behavior and what he was saying. And so, had that conversation with my mom. It's like, Mom, that's not Dad. There's some signs going on here that tell me this is dementia early on, right? Don't take it personally. You got to step back and separate it. Right. So I've been able to take all of that and put it to use in my life and help others in their life. And voila, I think the community is a much better place for dementia patients and their caregivers as a result of Miles for Memories.
And that's where we'll leave it. Representative Steve Frisbee, thank you.
Thank you.
For the time.
You bet.
All you have to do is follow Miles for Memories on Facebook so you're alerted to these episodes, but also some of the other information that Steve's alluded to and we've heard Sherry talk about and we've talked about on this program. That's one way to connect. milesformemories.org, of course, the website with details on the technology we talked about. If that sounds like something that could help you or a loved one, have a look there. I'm Richard Pyatt. We'll be back with more Creating Dementia Solutions soon. Take care.